The soil on my husband's grave was still fresh. We're talking 4 days after we buried Leonard. 4 days. I was standing in my own kitchen, still in my black dress. I hadn't even put away the casserole dishes the neighbors brought when my son-in-law Raphael walked in, pulled out a chair, sat down like he owned the place, and said,
"Rita, when does the 400,000 clear? Because we've been looking at a piece of land in Scottsdale, and the seller won't hold it past Friday."
He said it just like that. Flat. Casual. Like he was asking me to pass the salt. I looked at him. I looked at my daughter Stephanie, who was standing right behind him, arms crossed, not meeting my eyes. And then I looked back at him. I didn't say a word. I walked to the sink, rinsed my coffee mug, set it on the rack, and left the kitchen. Because here's what Raphael did not know. He did not know that the week before Leonard passed, I had already sat down with my estate attorney, a quiet woman named Carolyn Whitfield, sharp as a tack, 22 years of experience, and absolutely zero patience for men like Raphael. He did not know that Leonard and I had spent the last 3 years making sure this exact moment could never go the way Raphael imagined it would. He did not know that there was an envelope already drafted and waiting. And he did not know that he had just started a clock on his own undoing. My name is Rita Davila. I am 71 years old. I was married to Leonard Davila for 44 years. And this is the story of how my husband protected me even after he was gone, and how I made sure his life's work did not end up in the hands of a man who never deserved a single dollar of it. Before I go any further, if you've ever watched someone's true colors come out the second money entered the picture, I want you to leave me a comment right now. Tell me your story. Tell me I'm not alone in this. And if you believe that grief should never be used as an opportunity, please hit subscribe. Because every woman on this channel deserves to hear stories like this one. Now, let me take you back. Leonard and I met in 1978 in San Antonio, Texas. He was 27, working construction. I was 24, teaching second grade at Riverside Elementary. He had a thermos of terrible coffee, a paperback novel in his back pocket, and the most patient eyes I'd ever seen on a man. We weren't rich, not even close. Leonard worked with his hands for 31 years, commercial construction, then his own small contracting business. We lived in a 3-bedroom house in a regular neighborhood. We drove used cars. We took road trips instead of flying. We clipped coupons until we were 50. But Leonard was meticulous with money. Every dollar had a job. Every year he contributed to his life insurance policy, the same policy for over 2 decades. He used to say, "Rita, the money I make is for right now. The money I protect is for after I'm gone." I used to roll my eyes a little. He wasn't the most romantic man, but he was consistent. And consistency, I have learned, is its own kind of love. We had 1 child together. Our daughter, Stephanie. She was our whole world. Sweet girl growing up. Quiet, thoughtful. She loved animals. She wanted to be a veterinarian for about 6 years and then switched to something in marketing. She moved to Phoenix after college. We talked every Sunday. Then she met Raphael Mendoza, 43 years old. Charming. I will give him that. He could talk. Lord, that man could talk. He had a story for everything and a reason for everything and a plan for everything. He sold commercial real estate and drove a truck that cost more than our first house. Leonard met him twice before the wedding. He didn't say much about him. Leonard wasn't a dramatic man, but the night after the rehearsal dinner, he sat down next to me on the back porch and said very quietly,
"Rita, that man is never going to stop looking for a shortcut."
I told him he was being unfair. I was wrong. The first red flag with Raphael came 18 months into their marriage. Stephanie called me on a Tuesday evening. Her voice was tight. That stretched out calm. That means a woman is working very hard, not to cry.
Mom, I have to ask you something. Raphael is in a deal that needs to close quickly and we're a little short. It's just temporary. If you and Dad could loan us $15,000, he could pay you back within 90 days.
I talked to Leonard. He said no. Not harshly. Leonard was never harsh, but firmly. He said,
If Raphael needs $15,000 quickly, that tells me something about how he manages money. And I don't want our savings tangled up in that.
Stephanie was embarrassed. Raphael was furious. He called Leonard old-fashioned. He called him untrusting. He sent Leonard an article about the importance of family investment. Leonard filed it in the trash and didn't mention it again. 2 years after that, Raphael had a business venture, a franchise opportunity, one of those smoothie bar concepts that were popular for about 5 minutes. He and his business partner put in $50,000 each. The franchise closed inside of 14 months. Stephanie told me quietly that they borrowed part of their down payment from her savings without fully telling her what he was doing with it. She found out when the statements came. I called her and said, "Honey, that's not okay." She said she knew. She said he was working on it. She said he was stressed. She made a lot of excuses for him over the years. I learned to stop arguing. A woman stands by her husband even when she shouldn't, and no amount of your mother telling you otherwise is going to change that. I know. I learned that lesson the hard way watching my own sister. But what I did do was watch. I watched him ask my daughter for her bonus every year to cover some shortfall. I watched him lease a new vehicle every 3 years, always something expensive, always something he didn't need. I watched him eat at Leonard's table, drink Leonard's good bourbon, and talk about Leonard's business like he'd built it himself. And then Leonard got sick. Prostate cancer. Caught late, stage 3. Leonard was 68 years old. He was still going into the office 3 days a week. He refused to sit still. We fought it. We did everything the doctors told us. Surgery, then radiation, then a round of hormone therapy that made him exhausted in a way I had never seen Leonard exhausted before. He slept 12 hours some days. He who had never slept past 6 in the morning in 40 years of marriage. Raphael's response to Leonard's illness was to start showing up more frequently. I know how that sounds. Some people might say, well, that's nice. He was being supportive. But I am 71 years old, and I have had a long time to understand what attention from Raphael looks like and what it means. When Raphael showed up at the hospital with flowers, he also asked the charge nurse how serious the prognosis was. Stephanie told me later he came home and opened up Leonard's insurance policy documents that same night looking to see what the payout would be. He didn't know she saw him. She told me about it 6 months later, after everything came out. He had already started calculating. And while he was calculating, Leonard was already 3 steps ahead of him. About 18 months before Leonard passed, he said to me one evening, we were sitting on the back porch the way we always did after supper. He said, "Rita, I need to talk to you about Carolyn." Carolyn Whitfield was our estate attorney. We'd had her since 2009 when we did our first wills after Leonard turned 50. She was methodical, no nonsense, and completely unimpressed by charm, which meant she had never warmed to Raphael even slightly. I've already called her. Leonard said, "We have an appointment Thursday." I asked him what for. He said, "To make sure that when I'm gone, Raphael can't get a single dollar of what I've built." Now, I want to stop here for a moment, because if you are a woman watching this and you have a pension, a life insurance policy, savings, a house, anything, I need you to hear what I'm about to say clearly. A lot of women in our generation, women our age, we trusted that our husbands had it handled. We signed things when we were told to sign. We didn't ask every question we should have asked. And some of us, too many of us, got to a certain point in life and realized we had no idea what was in place to protect us. Leonard sat me down at that Thursday appointment, and Carolyn walked me through everything we had. Here's what I want you to understand. A life insurance policy, the kind Leonard had, has what's called a named beneficiary. That means you specifically name who gets that money when you die. It does not automatically go to your estate. It does not go through probate. It goes directly to the person named on that policy. Leonard's policy was worth $400,000. And the named beneficiary on that policy was me, Rita Davila, his wife, not Stephanie, not Raphael, me. And here is the crucial part, because this is where it gets important for every one of you listening. Because I was the named beneficiary, that money was mine, not our marital assets, not part of Leonard's estate to be divided, mine. Raphael had no legal claim to it, no right to petition for it, no standing to demand it in any court. Carolyn explained this to us clearly. She said, Rita, this money transfers directly to you by operation of law the moment Leonard passes. It bypasses his estate entirely. No one can contest it. No one can force you to share it. What you do with it is entirely your decision. Then she said something I wrote down because I wanted to remember it exactly. The challenge isn't protecting the money from courts. It's protecting yourself from family pressure, guilt, manipulation. People will use love against you if they can. I looked at Leonard. He looked at me. We both knew who she was talking about. So Carolyn helped us put several more pieces in place. We updated our wills. We titled the house properly. It would transfer to me automatically with no probate. We identified all our accounts and confirmed beneficiaries. We set up a small revocable living trust for the remainder of Leonard's personal savings so that those two would transfer to me quickly and cleanly. And then Carolyn said, I want to prepare one more thing. A letter. Not a legal document, but something that clearly documents your intentions and your reasoning. Something that can be read aloud in the presence of a witness if it ever becomes necessary. Leonard thought about it. Then he said, Good, let's do that. She drafted it. He reviewed it. He signed it. That letter sat in a sealed envelope in Carolyn's office for 18 months. Now pause. I need you to hear how important all of this was. If you are a woman in your 60s or 70s listening to this right now, and you have not sat down recently with an estate attorney to review your beneficiary designations, please put a reminder in your phone right now. Today, call a lawyer this week. It doesn't have to be expensive. Most estate attorneys offer a consultation for a flat fee. What Carolyn did for us cost far less than the $400,000 it protected. A name on a form. That's what stood between me and Raphael's scheme. Leonard's name on a form and my name written in that policy. Leonard got very sick in the fall. By January, hospice came in. He passed on a Thursday morning in February at home in our bedroom, with the curtains open the way he liked them. I held his hand. The sun was just coming up. He was 70 years old. We had 44 years together, and he had spent the last 2 of those years making sure I would be okay without him. The funeral was on a Monday. By Wednesday, Raphael had made 3 phone calls to our financial advisor. I found this out later, much later, when our advisor, a man named Dennis Hobart, who had managed Leonard's investments for 15 years, called me personally to give me a heads up. Mrs. Davila, Dennis said, I want you to know that a man named Rafael Mendoza called this office on Wednesday, Thursday, and again on Friday. He identified himself as your son-in-law. He asked about the composition of Leonard's portfolio. He asked about liquidity timelines. He asked whether an estate could challenge a life insurance payout. Dennis paused. I didn't give him any information, but I thought you should know. So while I was planning the reception and writing thank you cards and going through Leonard's closet, that particular grief, the smell of your husband's shirts, Raphael was on the phone trying to map out how to access the money. And then came the kitchen conversation I already told you about. For days after the funeral, the Scottsdale land deal. After I walked out of that kitchen, I sat in my bedroom for a long time. I looked at the nightstand where Leonard's reading glasses still sat. I thought about calling Carolyn immediately. I decided to wait. I wanted to understand the full scope of what Raphael was planning before I made a move. I didn't have to wait long. 2 weeks after the funeral, Stephanie came over alone. She sat down across from me at the kitchen table. She had a piece of paper folded in her hand, and she couldn't quite look at me when she said, "Mom,
Raphael and I have been talking. You're 71. You don't need $400,000. Dad would have wanted us to be set up for the future. You could give us half, just half, and live more than comfortably on the rest."
I looked at my daughter, my one child, her father's daughter in her face. Same forehead, same way of pressing her lips together when she's uncomfortable. I said, "Did Raphael write that down for you? Or did you memorize it?" She flushed red. "That's not fair." "Stephanie, your father has been in the ground for 2 weeks. 2 weeks. Is this really the conversation we're having right now?" She started to cry. She said she was sorry. She said she didn't want to do this. She said Raphael had been pushing her for days, and she just needed me to understand the pressure they were under. And that is when I understood something very clearly. My daughter wasn't the enemy. My daughter was being used. Raphael knew that I would say no to him directly. So he sent Stephanie, because a mother has a harder time saying no to her child than to her child's husband. He was using my love for her as leverage. I reached across and held Stephanie's hands. "I love you," I told her. "This conversation is over for today, but I need you to hear me. I am your mother. I will always look out for you, but I'm going to ask you to trust me and give me a little time." She wiped her eyes and nodded. She didn't ask what I meant. The next week, Raphael's approach shifted. He started calling my brother-in-law, Thomas, Leonard's younger brother, to try to rally family support. He told Thomas that I was being irrational and grief-addled, and that someone needed to talk sense into me before I made poor financial decisions. Thomas called me immediately. "Rita, I need you to know what that man just said to me." He told me the whole conversation. Then he said, "You need to call Carolyn Whitfield today." Already on my calendar, I told him. Thomas laughed, that short, dry laugh that reminded me of Leonard so much it hurt. "That's my brother's wife," he said. I walked into Carolyn Whitfield's office on a Thursday morning, 3 weeks after Leonard's funeral. She had flowers on her desk, marigolds, the orange and yellow kind. Leonard used to plant them along our fence every spring. I don't know if she remembered that, or if it was a coincidence. Either way, I had to take a breath before I sat down. Carolyn did not waste time. "Tell me everything Raphael has done since the funeral. Every phone call, every conversation, everything you know." I told her. The kitchen, the Scottsdale land deal, Dennis Hobart's call, Stephanie's visit, the attempt to turn Thomas against me. She listened without interrupting. She took notes on a yellow legal pad in small, precise handwriting. When I was finished, she set down her pen and said, "Rita, this is exactly what Leonard anticipated, and everything we put in place is holding perfectly." She walked me through it again. Not because I had forgotten, but because she wanted me to feel the solid ground beneath me. She said, "The life insurance payout has nothing to do with Leonard's estate. The beneficiary designation controls it entirely. The money transfers directly to you. Raphael has no legal avenue. He cannot petition probate court because the money never enters probate. He cannot claim it as a marital asset because it is not one. The only thing he can do is pressure you emotionally, And that is exactly what he is doing. Then she picked up a thick sealed envelope from the corner of her desk. I recognized it. I had seen Leonard sign it. Leonard asked me to give this to you. When you felt ready to use it, Carolyn said. It's a personal letter, written in his hand, notarized, and witnessed in this office. He asked that it be read aloud to Raphael and Stephanie in your presence, or mine, when the time was right. He knew this would happen, I said. My voice was steady. I was proud of that. He knew Raphael. Carolyn said simply. She handed me the envelope. I held it in both hands. It was heavier than I expected. The paper was thick, the good stationery Leonard bought years ago and never used much. I could feel the fold of pages inside. I did not open it right then. I took it home and I put it on the nightstand on Leonard's side, and I let it sit there for 3 more days while I decided what to do. Carolyn had also sent a formal letter to Raphael and Stephanie, a legal document on firm letterhead explaining clearly and without any warmth whatsoever the following. 1. The life insurance benefit was the sole property of Rita Davila. 2. No claim, petition, or legal challenge had any basis in law. 3. Any further contact with Leonard's former financial advisor, Dennis Hobart, regarding the Davila estate would be treated as harassment. For Rita Davila had retained counsel, and all future communications regarding financial matters should be directed through Carolyn Whitfield's office. Raphael called Stephanie the night he received that letter. Stephanie called me the next morning. Mom, Raphael is furious. He says you're attacking him. Stephanie, I kept my voice calm. I'm protecting myself. And I'm protecting you, whether you know it yet or not. Can you come here on Saturday? I have something I need to share with you. A long pause on the line. Just you? I said. Not Raphael. Another pause. Okay, Mom. I spent Friday evening at the kitchen table with a cup of chamomile tea and Leonard's letter in front of me. I read it for the first time. I won't share every word. Some of it belongs only to me and my daughter. But I will tell you this. Leonard wrote the way he lived. Quietly, directly, with no drama and no wasted words. He talked about what he had built and why he built it. He talked about the years he and I had worked together, sacrificed together, planned together. He talked about Stephanie and how much he loved her. And then he talked about Raphael, not with anger, not with contempt, with that clear-eyed, steady disappointment of a man who had seen exactly what he had hoped he was wrong about. I folded the letter back into the envelope, finished my tea, and went to bed. Saturday came. Stephanie arrived at 10 in the morning with 2 cups of coffee from the drive-thru. She knows I like mine with a little cream and no sugar, and she always remembers things like that. That's who she is underneath all of it. And she looked tired. She had dark circles. She was wearing a ponytail, which she only does when she hasn't slept well. We sat at the kitchen table together, the same table where Raphael had sat 4 days after the funeral and asked about a land deal in Scottsdale. I pushed one of the coffees toward her. I put the envelope in the center of the table. She looked at it. That's your father's handwriting. She said quietly, yes. When did he write this? About 1.5 years ago. He wrote it with Carolyn present. It's notarized. I kept my hands flat on the table. He wanted you to hear it. She wrapped both hands around her coffee cup. Mom, I'm sorry about how Raphael has been behaving. I know it's been. Honey, I said it gently, but I said it. Let's not start with apologies for him. Let's start with the letter. I read it aloud. Leonard started by telling Stephanie how proud he was of her. Not in a sentimental greeting card way. Leonard didn't do that, but specifically, he mentioned her work ethic. He mentioned the time she drove 4 hours in an ice storm to be with us when Leonard had his first hospital stay. He mentioned the way she had always called on Sunday evenings, even after she moved away, even when she was exhausted. You have always shown up, he had written. That matters more than you know. Stephanie put her hand over her mouth. Then Leonard talked about the insurance policy. He explained in plain language why he had named me as the sole beneficiary. He said it was not because he didn't trust Stephanie. He said it was because he understood that Stephanie's judgment, like most good people's, was sometimes clouded by loyalty. And he said that he had watched Raphael for years, and what he saw was a man who was very good at spending other people's resources. He wrote, "I am not asking you to leave him. I am not asking you to be angry at him. I am asking you to understand that the money I saved over 40 years was saved to protect your mother's life after I am gone. That is where it belongs. It is her security. It is her floor. And no one, not family pressure, not Raphael's plans, not even your love for him, should be allowed to pull that floor out from under her." And then Leonard wrote something that I will never forget as long as I live. He wrote, "Stephanie, if Raphael is a good man, he will understand this and respect it. If he is not, then the way he responds to your mother right now will tell you everything you need to know about the years ahead of you." I finished reading. The kitchen was very quiet. Stephanie was crying, not loudly, just that steady, quiet kind of crying that means something has broken open inside. I passed her a napkin from the holder on the counter, the ceramic rooster holder Leonard brought back from a trip to New Mexico 20 years ago, one of those useless, lovely things that somehow outlasts everything else. She held it in her lap and looked at the table. "He wrote that a year and a half ago." She said, "Finally!" He did. He knew. He always knew. "You know how your father was." She looked up at me. Her eyes were red. "Mom, the night Raphael got that letter from Carolyn, he didn't come to bed until 3 a.m. And when I woke up, he was at the kitchen table with his laptop, and he was on a real estate website looking at properties, not the one in Scottsdale anymore. A different one, like he was already moving on to the next plan. I let her sit with that. I did not say, "I told you so." I did not say, "Your father and I saw this coming." I just said, "What do you want, Stephanie?" Not Raphael. You. She was quiet for a long time. "I want to stop feeling like I'm always the one cleaning up after a storm I didn't start," she said. I reached over and held her hand. "That's a start." I told her. I want to pause here for a moment, because if you are watching this right now and you are a mother or a grandmother and you have a child who is married to someone who makes you uneasy, I want you to hear what I did in that moment. I did not force a choice. I did not issue an ultimatum. I did not attack Raphael. I let Leonard's words do the work, because a father speaking from the grave, with love and clarity and no anger, is more powerful than anything I could have said in that kitchen. And I have to tell you, if your husband is still with you right now, today, talk to him about this. Sit down together. Call an attorney if you need one. Make your wishes clear. Write the letter, because none of us knows how much time we have, and preparation is the most loving thing you can do. 3 days after Stephanie's visit, she called me. "Mom, Raphael wants to meet with you. He says he wants to clear the air. He's going to suggest sitting down with both of you and maybe a mediator." I said, "That's fine, but I'd like Carolyn Whitfield present." Silence. "His attorney too, if he wants one." I added, "I have nothing to hide." The meeting was scheduled for a Wednesday morning. Carolyn's conference room. Simple setup, a long oak table, good chairs, a window looking out onto the parking lot of a strip mall. Nothing dramatic about the room. Everything dramatic about what happened in it. Raphael arrived in a charcoal gray blazer. He had his hair combed. He had practiced looking reasonable. He did not bring his own attorney. That told me something. Either he couldn't afford one, which, given the pattern of the last several years, was entirely possible, Or he thought this was going to be a conversation he could win with charm. Raphael had always believed he could charm his way through anything. He shook Carolyn's hand at the door. "Thank you for making the time," he said, smooth, confident. Carolyn said, "Of course," and nothing else. We sat down, me on one side, Carolyn beside me, Raphael and Stephanie across from us. Stephanie was still, her hands folded in her lap. She was not performing. She was watching. Carolyn opened her folder. She had a way of doing this that was very calm and entirely intimidating. Pages arranged in tabs. Not a single piece of paper out of order. "Mr. Mendoza, my client, Rita Davila, has asked me to clearly outline the legal reality of Leonard Davila's estate and the life insurance payout before we discuss anything further. I want to make sure everyone in this room has the same accurate information." Raphael leaned forward slightly, ready to negotiate. Carolyn didn't give him room. Leonard Davila held a $400,000 life insurance policy through Northwestern Mutual. The named beneficiary is Rita Elena Davila, his wife. The beneficiary designation was made in 2001 and was confirmed most recently in a signed beneficiary review dated 14 months ago. Upon Leonard Davila's death, that benefit transferred directly and immediately to Mrs. Davila by operation of law. It did not enter his estate. It was not subject to probate. No portion of it belongs to or is owed to any other party. She turned a page. Mrs. Davila also has a revocable living trust, a properly titled marital home, and all joint accounts that transferred to her automatically upon her husband's death. The estate is, in legal terms, straightforward and entirely in order. There is nothing to contest. Raphael's jaw was tight. He said, "With respect, I wasn't planning to contest anything. I just think there's a conversation to be had about how this money can benefit the family." "Mr. Mendoza." Carolyn's voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. "I want to be direct with you. A life insurance payout made to a surviving spouse is that spouse's individual property. It is not a family asset. Mrs. Davila has no legal or moral obligation to share any portion of it, and I want you to understand, so there is no ambiguity, that this firm has documented every communication, every inquiry, and every attempt made since Mr. Davila's passing to influence or access these funds." I watched his face. The confidence was going out of it like air from a tire. Every call to Dennis Hobart's office, Carolyn continued. Every conversation with Thomas Davila. The kitchen conversation 4 days after the funeral. He glanced at Stephanie. She looked down at the table. "This isn't a threat," Carolyn said. "It's information. Mrs. Davila is choosing not to pursue any action at this time. She simply wants you to understand exactly where things stand." Then I spoke for the first time since we sat down. "Raphael, I have one more thing to share with you. Something Leonard left for you specifically." I took the envelope from my purse and set it in the center of the table. His name was on the outside in Leonard's handwriting. Raphael Mendoza. Below it, a date, written the day Leonard signed it in Carolyn's office. Raphael looked at it. He didn't reach for it. "This is a personal letter from my husband," I said. He asked that it be read in a setting like this one, with a witness present. "Carolyn will read it." A long silence. Carolyn opened the envelope and unfolded the letter. She read, "Raphael, if you are hearing this, then what I prepared for has come to pass. I am gone, and you are trying to access what I left for Rita." Raphael's jaw tightened. "I want to tell you something, man to man. I do not write this with hatred. I write it with the same clarity I brought to everything I built in my life. I watched you for many years. I saw how you moved through money, other people's money, Stephanie's money, borrowed money. I saw the ventures that failed and the debts that were quietly absorbed by others. I saw the pattern even when you couldn't. You are not a stupid man. You are a man who has never been forced to stand on what he himself has built. And that is the problem. My wife spent 44 years standing beside me. She sacrificed, she saved, she supported every decision I made even when she disagreed. This money is not a windfall. It is the result of her life given to our life together. It belongs to her completely. If you were the man I hoped you would become for my daughter, you would have understood that without a letter from a dead man. But here we are. I am asking you, if you have any love for Stephanie that is real, to stop, to stand up, to build something that is yours. Not because I demand it, because your wife deserves a partner, not a plan. If you cannot do that, then what I have arranged will stand long after I am gone, and there is nothing you can do about it. That is all I have to say to you. Carolyn set down the letter. Rafael Mendoza, a man I had watched be bold and loud and charming for 11 years, put his elbows on the table and pressed his face into his hands. And he cried, not the small, dignified kind, the ugly kind, the kind that comes out of a man when he's been seen completely, when someone has named exactly what he is, not in anger but with calm certainty, and there is nowhere to go with it. Stephanie sat very still. She did not reach for his hand. I looked at my daughter across that table. Her eyes were dry. She was watching her husband cry, and something in her face was very quiet, not cold, just clear. The way a person looks when the fog lifts and they can finally see the landscape. I stood up. I picked up my purse. Carolyn closed her folder. Raphael was still crying. I said nothing else. I walked out. The Scottsdale land deal never went through. I found out later, through Thomas, that Raphael had already put a deposit down with borrowed money he had borrowed from his own brother, a man named Carlos who lives in Tucson, and who had no idea what he was funding. When the payout didn't arrive the way Raphael planned, he couldn't cover the balance and lost the deposit entirely. I felt no satisfaction in that. I want to be honest about that. Watching someone lose money is not a victory. It is just a consequence. What happened with Stephanie is more complicated and more important. In the weeks after that meeting, Stephanie went quiet. She and Raphael had what she later described to me as the hardest month of our marriage. He was angry, first at me, then at Leonard, then at Carolyn, then eventually, slowly at himself. She called me one evening about 6 weeks after the meeting, and she said something I will never forget. "Mom, I've been thinking about something Dad wrote, the part where he said, if Raphael has any love for me that is real, he would stop. And I've been sitting with that, asking myself whether what I have is real or whether I've just been telling myself it is." I let her talk. "I don't know the answer yet," she said, "but I know that for the first time in a long time, I'm asking the question. And that matters." "Yes, it does," I said. "I do not know where Stephanie and Raphael's marriage will land. That is not my story to tell, and honestly, it is not mine to decide. She is an adult woman who gets to make her own choices. What I know is that she is asking the right questions now, and she is asking them from a place of information, not delusion. Leonard gave her that letter, those quiet, plain-spoken words from a man who had been gone for months, gave my daughter something I could not give her with any amount of talking or begging or arguing. He gave her clarity about her own life. That is worth more than $400,000. As for me, I am still in the house on Clarendon Drive. I still have the ceramic rooster on the kitchen counter and Leonard's reading glasses on the nightstand. I cannot bring myself to move them. I still have his old sweater hanging on the hook by the back door. Some things you keep not because you need them, but because they are the shape of your life. The $400,000 is in an FDIC-insured savings account and a conservative investment fund that Carolyn and Dennis Hobart helped me set up. It will keep me independent. It will keep me in my home. It will cover my care if I ever need it. I sleep at night without worry about money, and I know in my bones that this is what Leonard spent 40 years working toward. I want to talk to you now, not as a story, just as one woman to another. If you are in your 60s or 70s and you have never sat down with an estate attorney, or if you have not done so in the last 5 years, I am telling you as someone who has lived through exactly this. Please do it. Know what you own. Know how it's titled. Know who the named beneficiaries are on every insurance policy, every retirement account, every bank account, because a name on a form controls everything. It does not matter what your will says if the beneficiary designation says something different. The designation wins every time. I cannot tell you how many women I know who are in difficult situations after their husbands passed because no one ever sat them down and explained these things. It is not shameful not to know, but it is fixable. And you deserve to know. The second thing I want to say is this. Grief is not a reason to make financial decisions. It is a reason to wait. If anyone comes to you in the weeks or months after a loss and applies pressure about money, that pressure is telling you something. Urgency around money, especially in the context of grief, is almost always a sign that the request cannot withstand time or daylight. Let it wait. Call an attorney. Take your time. And the third thing, saying no is not a betrayal of your family. Protecting what your husband worked for is not selfishness. Refusing to be manipulated through your love for your child is not coldness. These are boundaries. And boundaries at our age are not walls we build to keep people out. They are the clear lines that define who we actually are and what we will and will not accept. Leonard said it on our first date. I am not joking. He was like that even at 27. He said, Rita, the most important thing you can ever say is no. Not often, but when it matters, clearly. I thought he was being intense. I was 24. What did I know? I know now. If you have stayed with me until this point, thank you. From the bottom of my heart. This is not a story I take lightly. This is the most difficult thing I have experienced in my 71 years, harder even than the grief, which I was prepared for. No, one prepares you for the moment you realize the grief is being used against you. But I want to end with something that still brings me peace. Last spring, I was sitting on the back porch. The marigolds were coming up along the fence. I planted them myself this year. First time in 40 years I did it without Leonard, and my phone rang. It was Stephanie. Mom, I just wanted to call and say I love you, and that I'm sorry for how things happened. And that Dad was right. Right about what? I asked. About all of it, she said. About money. About Raphael. About you. I sat with that for a moment. What did he say about me? I asked. She laughed a little. He wrote it in the margin of one of his documents that Carolyn found when she was closing out the file. Just a note to himself. He wrote, Rita will be fine. She always is. I sat there on the back porch for a long time after that call. The marigolds were bright orange against the fence. The sun was doing what it does in April in Texas, polite, warm, not showing off. And I thought, 44 years. And he still had faith in me. That's the story. That's all of it. If this story reached you today, if you've ever been expected to hand over what was rightfully yours simply because someone thought you were too old, too soft, or too grieving to fight back, I want to hear from you. Leave me a comment. Tell me what boundary you held that someone else thought you wouldn't. Tell me about the person in your life who tried to protect you even after they were gone. And if you want to share this with someone who needs to hear it, a sister, a friend, a woman, who's going through something like this, please do. This channel is for real women, real stories, and the quiet strength it takes to stand your ground. Hit subscribe if this is the kind of story that matters to you. There's another story linked below. I think you'll want to hear it. Thank you for being here. Thank you for staying until the end. I'll talk to you